Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, strengthening the saints against Islam's assault on North America.
Welcome back once again to the Corner of Truth and Courage. This is Tom Wallace. We've been talking about this week about things that we ought to be leaders, to be the salt and light that God has called us to be. When unrighteousness shows up in our communities, we as God's children, we are to be the bearers of His righteousness, and we do that by being the salt and light. And how do you do that? Well, I've kind of been sharing with you some practical things because we need to develop godly leaders, men and women, that, number one, that will be strong, that they're going to be strong. Number two, they're going to have courage. They're going to be courageous. They're not going to be filled with fear. They're not going to let people bully them. And as we said yesterday, we need to also be kind. I think what we're seeing in the political world today, the lack of civility, the lack of respect, the lack of kindness, and it really does us, it hardly advances your position, your cause, when you're just outright mean and rude and disgusting in the manner of the way you push for your ideas. Now, quite honestly, this is the activity that we normally expect from the godless people, from the people who hate God, from those who are atheist or humanist. We tend to expect the lack of civility, the lack of kindness and respect and gentleness in the manner that we deal with our disagreements. But we, being children of God, we are representing not just our own views, we are representing God's views. And how you disseminate those things is vitally important. It's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. Now, be firm, be passionate, but also be kind. And here today, I want to give you my next point, my next thought. We need to be unmovable. Unmovable. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." What does that mean, to be steadfast and unmovable? Basically, that word steadfast means to be grounded, means to sit, to be established, to kind of dig in, to be steadfast, dig in. And then the following word helps us understand what we mean by digging in here. It means to be unmovable. In other words, to be like a rock here, a boulder or a cliff that is steadfast. It's unmovable. You can't move it. That's how we need to be on our convictions and on things that we believe in. In other words, we cannot give ground for compromising. James chapter 5, verse 12. But above all things, let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay. What does he mean by that? Be clear about what you believe in. Don't vacillate. Don't be someone that is... let me give you an example. I was just listening a few days ago on Fox News, and they were playing a rendition of... oh my goodness, my mind has just turned south. The politician, Romney. Romney was running for senator in Utah. It's interesting. He was the governor in Massachusetts, but now, and he ran for president from Massachusetts, but now he's running for governor in Utah. I guess that's his connection with the Mormons. I'm not sure what the election turned out on that. I haven't looked at the news on that. But anyhow, they played a rendition of him, and he is a flip-flopper. I mean, my goodness, one thing he's saying, he is a whole lifer. Another person, he believes women, he's all for women's rights and stuff, and kept flip-flopping from one position to the next. And what I'm saying in here is that be strong be courageous, but also be unmovable. Don't vacillate. Don't be a compromiser. Psalms 1:3 says, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bringeth forth his fruit in his season." We need to be like a tree, unmovable, set in our ground. And it's like the old, song, we shall not be moved. Don't make compromises. Now, let me tell you something. And I found this to be so true in my own observation. I was taught this as a child. What you practice in your generation, your children's generation will do in excess. What do I mean by that? What you make allowances for, make certain moderation allowances for, well, we're going to say that this is okay and tolerable, but we just practice this in moderation. In other words, we don't get drunk. We just drink with moderation. Well, I'll tell you what, one way of being sure that you don't get drunk is don't drink at all. Be a teetotaler. But if you practice moderation, your children will likely practice that in excess. Why? Because they don't see the fear in it. They don't see the wrong in it. If you make allowances for certain things you watch and certain things that you will permit, your children will digest that and more. They will push that envelope further on. The Apostle Paul had something to say about this to the people in Corinth. 1 Corinthians 10:23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. What does he mean by that? I may have the freedom, and the law may not prevent me from doing certain things, but it's not expedient for me to do those things. It's not going to be a good example for me to do it. It's not going. In other words, here's something I was taught too as a child. It's better to not go to the party than to say, I'm not going to drink or take drugs at the party. What do I mean by that? If you don't go to where that environment, where all that stuff is going to be there, it's far better to take that position, even though it may be lawful for you to go, and to say, hey, it's okay for me to go. It's not sinful, wicked for me to be at my friend's house. But the things that they're going to be doing at my friend's house may be wicked and wrong. And I'm not going to, just saying that even though I have the license and the God doesn't prevent me from doing certain things, it's not expedient for me to do it. I am going to flee temptation by not going there in the first place. And the idea here is be unmovable. Set your standards. Be a person of conviction, and don't compromise on those things. And so, folks, if we're going to be the leaders, and we need it, we need godly leaders in our home, we need godly leaders in our nation, we need leadership in our churches, we need the man who mounts that pulpit to stop being a coward and being afraid of preaching the whole counsel of God. They pull up, they say everything that's true and right, but they pull up short from getting into the controversial issues. And I'm afraid that's what most of us in our congregation, we need to know these things. We need pastors to be that moral guide for us to weigh into the controversial issues, but oftentimes they won't. We need parents to be that for their children. We need teachers to be that in their schools. We need leaders in their community to stand up for righteousness, to be unmovable, to not make the compromises, and to hold the ground. In fact, we've given up so much ground, we need to reclaim the ground that we have lost. And this is my prayer. Well, I hope these lessons, these broadcasts that we are dipping into these subjects there are encouraging and helpful to you. And I believe, most of us believe these things. We say, you know what, I believe you, Brother Wallace. I'm right with you. But it's one thing to believe it, but it's another thing to practice, isn't it? The Lord said, don't be just hearers of the word, but be ye doers of it. And if we do it together, we can stand together in strength. And we can see some things return back to the Lord. That's it for today. Join us again tomorrow at the corner of truth and courage. God bless you.